biggest question since the beginning of time that most people ask is, what is life all about? And why are we here? Some of us go in search of answers, while others sit back and just let it happen. Other people have no say in the matter, where they might suffer a near-fatal accident or a serious illness, and strange events are thrust upon them, where they have an NDE or near-death experience. Some people that have experienced an NDE recount what happened to them. In their stories, there does seem to be a common theme of a brilliant white light and tunnel that appears to embrace them, filling them with unconditional love, and most who experience it never want to return. Other people may find themselves in a beautiful landscape or garden where all of the colours are much more vivid than here on Earth. In this environment, they often meet family and friends. Have these people actually been to heaven or some other nirvana, or is this just our brain chemistry reacting to the dying process? The following 3 stories are about people who have been to the other side and the way it affected their lives. Number 3. Bryce Bond. Bond found that both adults and children occasionally report being greeted on the other side by animals, especially their old pets that have previously died, as well as deceased relatives. Several years before his death, Bryce Bond, a famous New York City media personality turned parapsychologist, told the story of what happened to him when he collapsed after a violent allergic reaction to pine nuts and was rushed to hospital. He remembered suddenly passing through a long tunnel towards a brilliant light. He then heard a bark, and racing towards him is a dog he once had, a black poodle named Peppy. When he sees him, he feels an emotional floodgate open. Tears filled his eyes as the dog jumps into his arms and licks his face. As he is holding him, he feels so real as he remembered him when he was alive. He could smell him, feel him, hear his breathing, and sense his great joy at being with him again. He puts his dog on the ground and then steps forward to embrace his stepfather. He then hears a very strong voice in his conscience. "Not yet," it says. Bryce screams, "Why?" Then this inner voice says, "What have you learned, and whom have you helped?" He was dumbfounded. The voice seems to be from without as well as within. Everything stops for a moment. He had to think of what was asked of him. He had to review what he had actually learned and who he had helped. Still feeling the presence of his dog around him, he pondered those 2 questions. Then he hears more barking and sees other dogs that he once owned. Bryce stands there for what seems to be an eternity and feels that he wants to embrace and be absorbed and merge into this wonderful reality. He wanted to stay. The sensation of not wanting to return to his old life is overwhelming. Bryce was then greeted by all of his relatives who had passed on before him. He experienced these loved ones as somewhat younger in form and face than when he had last seen them. They were healthier and happier. Then it was time to leave, where he remembered racing backwards through the same tunnel he had entered and being revived in time to witness a hypodermic needle being plunged into his arm. He heard a voice say, "Welcome back." He never asked who said that, nor did he care. He was told by the doctor that he had been dead for over 10 minutes. Number 2. Robert Monroe. Robert Monroe was the pioneer in the investigation of out-of-body experiences, or OBEs, and he wrote 3 books entitled Journeys Out of the Body, Far Journeys, and Ultimate Journey. Monroe had a large number of extensive out-of-body experiences into the astral realm, an out-of-body state unbound by time or death. In 1958, when Monroe was in his early 40s, he was listening to a relaxation tape and later started to experience strange physical feelings, leading to severe cramping across his diaphragm. Believing he had some illness, he visited the doctor, who said there was nothing wrong with him. Then his body took on other unusual effects, where he lay down and found that when he dangled his hand over the side of his bed, it could go through the floorboards. Believing he was now suffering from some mental illness terrified him, and again he sought the help of specialists who said there was nothing wrong with him. He eventually got used to this strange condition and decided to experiment further, and after a few years he found he could control these strange happenings where he was able to leave his body. On one occasion, while out of his body, he ended up in a park with flowers, trees and grass, all carefully tended. There were benches along the paths, and there were hundreds of men and women strolling by or sitting on benches. Some were calm, while others were apprehensive, and many had a dazed or shocked look of disorientation. They appeared uncertain, unknowing of what to do or what was to happen next. Monroe realised it was a meeting place where newly arrived people who had recently died waited for friends or relatives. From this park or meeting place, each newcomer would then be escorted to the next stage where he or she belonged. Was this place what people called heaven, or a staging post on the way to heaven, or wherever they are meant to go next? On another occasion, his family doctor, Richard Gordon, whom he had known for many years, passed away, so Monroe proceeded to contact him in the afterlife. Using his normal process to leave his body, he called out, "I want to see Dr. Gordon." After a moment, he started to move rapidly upwards, and suddenly everything was a blur of motion, and then he felt an arm under his left elbow. Somebody was assisting him to get there. After what seemed an endless journey, he found himself standing in a large room. Then the hand guided him to an open doorway where a male voice spoke into his left ear, "Wait here and the doctor will see you shortly." He could see a group of men in the room listening to a young man, about 22, with thick blonde hair, who was talking excitedly and gesturing. After waiting a long period of time, Monroe started to become impatient when the young man suddenly stopped and looked at him intently for a few seconds, and then went back to talking to the other men. He was starting to feel uncomfortable and decided to return to his body. He was frustrated at not meeting the doctor and decided to try again the following week. He again requested to meet Dr. Gordon, when a voice replied, "You have already met him." It suddenly occurred to him that the young man he had met whilst out of his body must have been Dr. Gordon. But how could that be? Dr. Gordon was an elderly man. Monroe then visited Dr. Gordon's widow and asked to see photos of him when he was a young man. The old photos of him were identical to the young man that he'd met in spirit. The question is, where had the doctor gone when he died, and why was he now a young man? He appears to have created an identical reality of his earth life in the afterlife. But now, in his prime as a young man, was this his new reality or just another stage along the way to either reincarnation, or will he move along to another level? Another important question is, what or where is heaven? It seems that whatever our set of beliefs are on earth is how we will perceive what greets us when we die. Many people have spoken of the park with its trees and flowers and their vivid colours, which is meant to comfort us after the shock of dying, and appears to be the first step on the road to wherever. Number 1. Mellen-Thomas Benedict. In 1982, Mellen-Thomas died from terminal brain cancer, but miraculously lived to tell about it. While showing no vital signs for 90 minutes, Benedict said suddenly he was fully aware and was standing up, but his body was in the bed. He said that being out of his body was so vivid that he could float through every room in his house. There was a light shining and he turned toward the light. The light was very similar to what many other people have described in their near-death experiences. It was so magnificent and you could feel it. It was alluring. You wanted to go to it like you would want to go to your mother or father's arms. He began to move toward the light. He said he knew intuitively that if he went to the light, he would be dead. As he was moving towards the light, he hesitated and said, "Please wait a minute. I want to think about this. I would like to talk to you before I go any further." To his surprise, the entire experience halted at that point. He found he was in control of his near-death experience. He then had some conversations with the light. The light kept changing into different figures: Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, mandalas, and other images and signs. He asked the light, "What is this all about?" The light said that your beliefs shaped the kind of feedback you are getting. If you were a Buddhist or Catholic or fundamentalist, you would get a feedback loop of your own beliefs. As the light revealed itself to him, he became aware that what he was really seeing was his higher self. We all have a higher self. We are directly connected to the source. So the light was showing him the highest self. Benedict said that because he was not committed to any particular religion, that is what was being fed back to him during his life after death experience. He then said that he really wanted to know what the universe was about. Then the light turned into the most beautiful thing that he'd ever seen: a mandala of human souls on this planet. He saw in this magnificent mandala how beautiful we all are in our essence. The human soul, the human matrix that we all make together is absolutely fantastic. It had suddenly changed his opinion of human beings. In that instant, he said, "Oh God, I did not know how beautiful we are," and was astonished to find that there was no evil in any soul. He asked, "How can this be?" The answer was that no soul was inherently evil. The terrible things that happen to people might make them do evil things, but their souls were not evil. The light said that what all people seek, what sustains them, is love. What distorts people is lack of love. Benedict then entered into another realm, more profound than the last, and became aware of something more, much more. It was an enormous stream of light, vast and full, deep in the heart of life. He asked what it was. The light responded, "This is the river of life. Drink of this manna water to your heart's content." So he took one big drink and then another. He felt ecstatic. Then the light knew all about him, everything, past, present and future. He then asked to see the rest of the universe, beyond our solar system, beyond all human illusion. The light then told him to go with the stream. He did, and was carried through the light at the end of the tunnel. He felt and heard a series of very soft sonic booms. Suddenly, he seemed to be rushing away from the planet on this stream of life. He saw the Earth fly away. The solar system in all its splendour whizzed by and disappeared. At faster than light speed, he flew through the centre of the galaxy, absorbing vast knowledge as he went. He learned that this galaxy and all of the universe is bursting with many different varieties of life. He saw many worlds. He learned that we're not alone in the universe. At this point of his near-death experience, he found himself in a profound stillness, beyond all silence. He could see and perceived forever, beyond infinity. He was in the void. As he rode this stream of consciousness through the centre of the galaxy, the stream was expanding in awesome fractal waves of energy. The superclusters of galaxies flew by. But then he realised that as the stream was expanding, his own consciousness was also expanding to take in everything in the universe. All creation passed him by. It was an unimaginable wonder. He was in pre-creation, before the Big Bang, and had crossed over the beginning of time. He was in the eye of creation and felt as if he was touching the face of God. It was not a religious feeling, simply he was at one with absolute life and consciousness. He could experience all of creation generating itself. It was without beginning and without end. Every subatom, star, planet, even consciousness itself is made of light and has a frequency. Everything is made of light. As he rode the stream on and on, he could see a huge light coming. Then the entire solar system appeared in the light, accompanied by one of those velvet booms. He could see during his near-death experience all the energy that this solar system generates, and it is an incredible light show. He could hear music of the spheres. Our solar system generates a unique matrix of light, sound, and vibratory energies. The light explained that there is no death. We are immortal beings. We have been alive forever. That we are part of a natural living system that recycles itself endlessly. He was then taken back through the light and back home, and was surprised when he opened his eyes after his near-death experience. He was told by his crying care worker that he'd been dead and cold for a long time. Within 3 days, he was feeling normal again, clearer, yet different than he'd ever felt in his life. After 3 months, he had more scans, and the doctor said there was nothing there now and called it spontaneous remission. Benedict had perhaps the most transcendental NDE ever documented. While on the other side, Benedict journeyed through various afterlife realms and was given access to universal intelligence by which he was allowed to absorb a tremendous amount of spiritual and scientific knowledge, including the nature of reincarnation. Benedict's enthusiastic curiosity during his NDE took him far into the remote depths of existence, and even beyond, into the energetic void of nothingness behind the Big Bang. He was given knowledge about humanity's role in the universe.